Now, I ain't saying I'm cursed when it comes to road trips, but if there's a flat tire, a busted hose, or a thunderstorm within a 100-mile radius, well, somehow it finds me. Amy says it's because I prepare for problems, which in her words means I jinx myself. Me, I just call it life being creative. That Thursday had started like every other sure, let's keep it simple kind of trip. We were supposed to make a short drive out toward the mountains 2 nights under the stars. A few beers, maybe a little fishing if the weather held. Nothing fancy. Jordan was behind the wheel of his pride, and Joy a white, boxy, slightly dented van he called the Stallion. It had more rust than shine, but he swore it ran smooth as butter. Butter sure may be old. Sun-baked butter left in a glove box for a summer. Amy sat up front with him, legs crossed, sunglasses perched on her nose. The picture of patience. Behind them, Emily was stretched across a pile of sleeping bags, camera in hand, filming everything like she was making a documentary on how not to road trip. Mike sat quietly by the window, earbuds in but not playing anything, just using them as an excuse to avoid Jordan's playlist, which was mostly 80s country and early 2000s power ballads. The sun was high, the air smelled like warm dust and pine sap. And I was halfway through a bag of trail mix when the Stallion coughed. Do you ever feel a vehicle give up? It's like it exhales through the steering column one deep wheeze that says, "I'm done, pal. Did y'all feel that?" I asked Dot. Jordan grinned. "She's just downshifting herself into a groove." "She downshifted right into her grave," Amy muttered. A few seconds later, the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree, and the van lurched. Jordan coasted us to the side of a long, empty stretch of road surrounded by nothing but dry fields and the hum of cicadas. The air inside went quiet, except for the faint click-click-click of the emergency flashers, slapping the steering wheel. That's not ideal. Emily leaned forward between the seats. Did we just break down? Because if we did, I need to record the moment. "Don't you dare," Amy said. But of course, Emily was already filming. The camera lens caught all of us in that first awkward moment of realization 5, adults sitting in a dying van in the middle of nowhere. Pretending this wasn't happening, I climbed out, the heat hitting me like an oven door. The road shimmered ahead, a silver snake stretching to the horizon. Dust crunched under my boots, and the air smelled like hot metal and gasoline. Jordan popped the hood and stared into it like a man examining a wounded animal. "Looks like..." "Yeah?" He nodded to himself. "That's an engine, all right." Amy joined me at the front, hands on her hips. "You told me this van was checked and serviced." "I did check it," Jordan said. "I checked the glove box still had napkins in it, and I serviced it. I filled the gas. I couldn't help it, I laughed. It was one of those dry, we're screwed but it's too hot to argue laughs. We took turns pretending to be helpful. Mike squatted by the front tire like he was meditating on its existence. Emily offered to Google it until she realized there was no signal. Amy pulled out a Mapan actual paper when Ann said, "We're somewhere between nowhere and no idea." After half an hour of tinkering, arguing, and swatting away flies big enough to vote, we accepted defeat. The sun was sliding west, the air smelled of burnt oil, and our options were either sit and roast or start walking. Jordan, trying to stay positive, clapped his hands. "All right, worst case, we camp here." "Who needs fancy campsites, huh?" Amy turned slowly toward him, the one with the food cooler. "Oh, come on." It's just Emily opened the cooler and frowned. "Warm soda? Melted ice. The cheese looks like a science experiment." Jordan deflated. "Okay, so we don't have cold drinks." Mike pointed down the road, where a faded sign leaned in the wind. "Hank's Service and Fuel 5 miles ahead." I squinted. "That sign looks like it's been there since the 80s. "Still," Mike said, shrugging, "better than waiting on a miracle." So we packed the essentials water bottles, a flashlight, Amy's just-in-case first aid kit, and Emily's camera, of course. We locked the Stallion, gave it a pat like saying goodbye to a wounded horse, and started walking. The road was quiet, except for the buzz of insects and the crunch of gravel under our boots. The air cooled a little as the sun dropped, carrying that mix of dust and wild grass, the kind smell that sticks to your clothes and reminds you later where you've been. Amy walked beside me, her arm brushing mine every few steps. "You know," she said, "I told you we should have taken my car and miss all this bonding." I grinned. She snorted. "You call this bonding, I call it cardio." Behind us, Jordan was narrating to Emily's camera like he was hosting a travel show. Out here, on the open road, 5 brave souls fight for survival, guided only by instinct and the faint scent of diesel. "Shut up," Emily said, laughing after about an hour. The horizon lit up faintly an amber glow that promised civilization, or at least electricity. We followed it like moths to a porch-light dot. By the time we reached the gas station, the sky had turned purple. A neon sign buzzed faintly overhead, hand service and fuel. The K in Hank flickered every few seconds, like it couldn't decide if it still worked. The air was heavy with the smell of motor oil, coffee, and distant rain. A bell above the door jingled as we stepped inside, and an old man behind the counter looked up, eyes bright under a trucker cap. His name, Patch Red Hank. And he had that kind of easy smile that comes from knowing every story in a 50-mile radius. "Well, I'll be," he said. "You'll look like you've been through a rodeo." Jordan stepped forward, wiping sweat off his brow. "You could say that. Our van broke down about 5 miles back. Think you could give us a hand?" Hank leaned on the counter, thinking, "That old stretch of road. Ain't much traffic out there these days. You're lucky you made it here before sundown." "Lucky isn't the word I'd use," Amy muttered. Hank chuckled. "Well, let's see what we can do for you. You're welcome to stick around while I call my tow fella. Might take him a bit, he lives out near Cedar Hollow, and his truck's got more attitude than power." The way he said it, you just knew this night wasn't going to end quickly. He motioned toward a coffee pot in the corner. "Go on, help yourselves. Ain't fancy, but it'll keep your soul awake." And that's how it began. The night 5 tired campers found themselves stranded in a dusty old gas station, under flickering lights and the hum of vending machines, waiting on a tow that wasn't in any hurry. What we didn't know yet, sitting there on those squeaky vinyl stools, sipping burnt coffee, was that this was going to turn into one of those nights we'd talk about for years. Laughter, and stories shared with a man named Hank, and the strangest, coziest sleepover I ever had. Now, there's something about a small-town gas station at night that feels like its own little world. The air hums different, quieter, slower. You can smell the faint sweetness of old gasoline mixed with burnt coffee and motor oil. And the buzzing of the fluorescent lights sounds like a tired bee that's given up on finding flowers. That's where we were. 5 of us, sitting on cracked vinyl stools under flickering yellow light, staring at a coffee pot that looked older than all of us combined. Hank stood behind the counter like a man who'd seen it all twice already, and was happy to see it a third time. His denim shirt was faded soft, sleeves rolled to his elbows, red vest smudged with grease. He smelled faintly of tobacco and pine soap. "So," he said, pouring himself a cup of that tar-colored coffee, "y'all headed somewhere fancy, or just wandering like most folks who break down out here?" Jordan raised his hand like a student. "Camping trip, or, well, it was a camping trip." Hank chuckled. "Ah, so you're the adventurous types. You know what they say about adventure, it's just bad planning with a good attitude." Amy smiled at that, her first real smile since the breakdown. "That's a good one. It's the truth," Hank said, sipping his coffee. "So, where's this fancy van of yours?" 5 miles back," I said. "On the shoulder of Route 18, white van, doesn't move, doesn't even pretend to move." He scratched his chin. "That'd be on that long, flat stretch past the cotton fields, huh? Yeah, I can get my tow guy, Earl, to go fetch it. Problem is, he don't move much faster than that van of yours. Might be a while." Jordan leaned forward. "How long's a while?" "Well," Hank said, glancing out the window, "he's probably having supper right now. Then he'll watch his show. Then he'll remember he's got a job to do. So, couple hours, maybe 3, Amy sighed, resting her chin on her hand. So we're stuck here." Hank grinned. "Stuck? Nah, you're visiting. Big difference." He shuffled out from behind the counter, motioning toward the back of the shop. "I got a few folding chairs, some snacks, and if you behave yourselves, I'll even share the good coffee, not that gas station sludge y'all been drinking." We followed him, and it felt like stepping into another world. Behind the main store, there was a small lounge area couch that had definitely seen better days, a little TV on a stack of milk crates, and shelves lined with old photos, trophies, and what looked like years of forgotten junk. A storm was building outside. You could feel it before it hit. The air had that weight to it, humid and still, like the world was holding its breath. Every now and then, the wind would rattle the door, carrying the smell of rain and dust through the cracks. Hank flipped on a small desk lamp. The light glowed warm, yellow, cozy. "Make yourselves at home," he said. "Earl'll call when he's close. Until then, might as well get comfortable." Mike sat down first, his long frame folding onto the couch. Emily started filming again, panning across the shelves. "It's like a time capsule," she whispered. "Sure is," Hank said proudly. 43 years I've been running this place. My wife used to call it my second home. After she passed, it became my first." The room quieted a little at that. The only sound, the ticking of a wall clock, and the soft hum of rain starting to fall outside. Amy looked up. "You've really been here that long?" Hank nodded. "Since '82. Back when gas was cheap, and people stopped for directions instead of staring at them little screens. Used to be a cafe across the road. Folks would come in for pie, then fill up before heading out. Now it's just me and the raccoons most nights." He grinned. "Till y'all showed up. Breaks the silence real nice." Thunder rolled in the distance, long and deep. The rain hit the roof in heavy drops, slow at first, then faster at the kind of steady rhythm that could put you to sleep if you weren't careful. We spent the next hour talking, laughing, listening to Hank's stories. He told us about the time a truck full of chickens overturned out front, and he spent 3 days chasing hens around the property. Emily couldn't stop laughing. "You're lying," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Cross my heart," Hank said. "Still find feathers every now and then." Amy offered to help make coffee, but Hank wouldn't have it. "Guess don't lift a finger here," he said. Only rule I got. The smell of his good coffee filled the room soon after. Rich, earthy, a little burnt but comforting, like warmth in liquid form. He poured it into mismatched mugs and handed them out. Jordan took a sip and whistled. "Now that's the real stuff, strong enough to make your heartbeat reconsider its schedule," Hank said, grinning. Rain pounded harder now, echoing on the tin roof. The lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. Emily filmed the window, capturing the sheets of rain illuminated by the neon sign outside. "Feels like we're in a movie," she said softly. "Yeah," I said, leaning back. "One where the main characters don't die, I hope." Amy elbowed me. Not funny, but she smiled anyway. Sometime around 9, Hank brought out a box of old board games. Dust puffed into the air when he opened it, smelling like cardboard and nostalgia. "Used to play these with my kids," he said. "They're all grown and gone now. Let's see if I remember how this one works." We played Sorry for an hour straight, the thunder rolling like applause after every argument. Jordan got too competitive. Emily narrated the game like a sports announcer. Amy accused everyone of cheating, and Hank just laughed until his sides hurt. When the storm really started howling, Hank turned on a small battery lantern and said, "Might lose power, but we'll be fine. Got everything we need right here." And somehow, he was right. The place didn't feel like a gas station anymore. It felt like a cabin. The rain on the roof, the smell of coffee and motor oil, the hum of laughter, it wrapped around us like a blanket dot. Hours passed. Earl never called. We didn't care at one point. Hank brought out a jar of pickles he'd canned himself. Best midnight snack. "You'll find this side of Texas," he said, handing them around. They were salty, sharp, cold, and maybe it was the moment, but they tasted incredible. Amy actually moaned when she ate one, and we all cracked up. Outside, lightning split the sky. The windows glowed white, then fell dark again. "Reminds me of that night in the Smokies," I said quietly to Amy, "the one where our tent almost flew away." She laughed softly. "Yeah, except this time we've got a roof and coffee." Jordan raised his mug. "To roofs and coffee." To Hank, Emily added. Hank just smiled, a little shy. "Well now, that's mighty kind. But truth is, y'all gave me the company I didn't know I was missing." We sat in that golden silence a while longer. The storm softened to a drizzle. The air smelled of wet asphalt and earth, that rich, sweet scent that only comes after hard rain. By midnight, the power flickered again, then went out completely. The only light came from the lantern and the faint blue glow of Emily's camera screen. "Guess that's our cue," Hank said. "I got some spare blankets in the back. Floor's clean enough if y'all don't mind roughing it a bit." We didn't mind, not after the day we'd had. Hank spread out some old quilts that smelled faintly of cedar and dust. The floor was cool and hard, but we were too tired to care. Jordan lay down by the counter, snoring within minutes. Emily curled up with her hoodie as a pillow, camera still in her hand. Mike took the corner, eyes half closed but listening to the rain. Amy and I shared one of Hank's old army blankets. It was rough and scratchy, but it trapped the warmth. She rested her head on my shoulder, whispering, "You know, this isn't so bad." I smiled into the dim light. Not bad at all. Hank sat by the window, sipping the last of his coffee. "Y'all sleep easy," he said softly. "Storm'll be gone by sunrise." Always is. The last thing I remember was the sound of rain easing off, the soft creak of Hank's chair, and the smell of that gas station, old, comforting, alive in its own way, and for a night we never planned, it sure felt like it was meant to happen. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed wasn't the light. It was the smell, coffee. Fresh coffee. Not the burnt motor oil kind from the night before. This was the real deal. The kind that creeps through the air slow and warm, finds your nose, and whispers, "Hey, time to get up." Sleepyhead. The second thing I noticed was the quiet. The kind of stillness that only comes after a storm has wrung itself dry. You could almost feel the world exhaling damp air, soft light, that faint metallic scent that hangs around puddles. I blinked my eyes open and saw Hank standing by the front window, sunlight spilling in around him like a halo through the dusty glass. He was stirring a pot on a little camping stove he'd set up behind the counter. "Well, good mornin', early riser," he said, noticing me stir. Or halfway riser. Amy was still asleep beside me, bundled in the old army blanket, her hair a mess of gold and static. Jordan was sprawled out under the soda fridge, one boot off, snoring like a chainsaw. Emily had her camera tucked to her chest like it was a teddy bear. Mike was already sitting cross-legged, quiet as always, watching the sunlight hit the rainwater outside. I asked, rubbing my eyes. "Almost 7, Hank said. Earl called. He's on his way, believe it or not. Should be here before breakfast's done." "Breakfast?" He grinned. "Sure thing." Got me a hot plate and some pancake mix left over from last week. "Y'all look like you could use a little sugar to start your day, right?" I sat up, stretching my back till it popped. "You're a saint, Hank." "Nah," he said, flipping a pancake. "Just a man with too much mix and not enough company." The air in the gas station felt softer in the morning light. The neon sign outside had gone dark. The puddles on the lot shimmered gold, and everything smelled of rain, coffee, and frying batter. It was peaceful, the kind of peace that sneaks up on you after chaos. Amy woke next, groaning and stretching. "What? Oh, wow." I slept like a rock. "Pancakes are on," I said. Her head snapped up. "Did you say pancakes?" I grinned. "Told you this trip would work out." She rolled her eyes. "You didn't tell me it includes sleeping on a gas station floor." Details. Jordan stirred soon after, mumbling. "Anybody get the number of that thundercloud that hit me?" Emily caught that on camera, of course. "Say it again. You're gold." He just waved her off, pulling his hat over his face. By the time everyone was up, Hank had a stack of pancakes piled high on a chipped blue plate. He poured syrup from a jar that looked like it had been around since the Reagan administration, and somehow it was the best breakfast I'd had in years. "Don't ask what kind of syrup that is," Hank warned. "Could be maple, could be mystery. I just know it's sweet." Amy took a bite, her eyes lighting up. "Oh wow, that's really good," Hank said proudly. "Told ya. Years of practice. Learned to cook for myself when the cafe closed across the road. Been flippin' pancakes ever since." We ate sitting on the floor, plates in our laps, sun warming our backs. Every few minutes a car would pass outside, sending soft ripples through the puddles. The storm clouds were long gone, leaving the sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. "You know," Jordan said between mouthfuls, "I don't think any of us expected to survive the night. I thought that roof was going to fly off around midnight." Emily nodded. "I was ready to vlog our final moments." Mike smirked. "It would have been your most popular video." "Exactly," she said, "not missing a beat." Amy laughed. "If we ever get stranded again, we're coming here." Hank chuckled, flipping another pancake. "Y'all are welcome any time. I'll even save you the good blankets next round." The warmth of it all hit me then, not just the sunlight, but but the kind of warmth that comes from realizing you've been part of something small and special, something no one planned, no one expected, and yet it fit together like it was always supposed to happen. A little later, a beat-up tow truck rumbled into the lot. Earl climbed out, a man built like a refrigerator, moving at the speed of cold molasses. He gave us a nod and said, "Heard y'all needed rescuing?" Jordan raised his coffee mug. We were starting to think we lived here now. Earl just grunted. Wouldn't be the worst place to end up. While he loaded the van onto the flatbed, Hank came out to stand beside me, his hands in his vest pockets. The morning breeze carried the smell of wet dirt and fresh oil. "Shame to see y'all go," he said quietly. "Brightened up this old place for a night." I said, "You saved our trip." He smiled, eyes creasing. "Well, I didn't fix your van. I just gave you coffee and a roof." "Yeah," I said, "but sometimes that's all it takes." Amy came over and hugged him, surprising him so much he nearly dropped his mug. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." Hank patted her shoulder, awkwardly smiling. "Don't thank me, sweetheart. Just pay it forward someday. That's how these things work." We said our goodbyes, loaded into the van after Earl charged us less than I think he should have, and hit the road again. The sun was high, the world smelled fresh, and laughter came easy. As we pulled away, I looked in the mirror and saw Hank still standing out front, waving. The neon sign flickered back to life behind him. Open 24 hours, and I swear, for a second I thought, yeah, that fits him just right. Amy rested her head against the window, smiling. "You know," she said softly, "I think that's going to be one of my favorite memories." "Yeah?" I said, gripping the wheel. "Mine too." We drove on in silence for a while, the tires hissing on damp asphalt. Emily leaned forward from the back seat. "So, where to next?" Jordan grinned. "Somewhere with actual beds," Mike chuckled. "Or at least fewer gas fumes." Amy looked over at me, one eyebrow raised. "You planning another adventure already?" I smiled, eyes on the road ahead. "Nah, not planning this one, just gonna see where the road takes us?" She laughed softly. "That's how it starts, you know?" "Yep," I said, "and that's how the best stories begin." The van rolled on, sunlight dancing across the dashboard, and the smell of Hank's coffee still clung faintly to our clothes, a little piece of that night we'd never forget. By the time I finished telling this one around the fire, folks are usually smiling, some shaking their heads, some laughing, because it's not a story about a storm or a van or even a gas station. It's about those moments you don't plan, that somehow become the ones you hold closest. So next time you find yourself stuck, soaked, and out of luck, remember old Hank's words, "You ain't stuck, you're just visiting." And with that, I leaned back, poked the fire a little, and let the crackling fill the silence. Because really, what better ending could there be?